What's the law about advertising?
Like, first of all, on TV, they're not allowed to advertise before certain hours. Alcohol is not supposed to be advertised before 9 p.m.
Oh.
Even they're not supposed to advertise during prime time. But if you go to some stations, they actually do. Yes, that's something that a lot of these companies violate.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So rules around marketing, that's the
biggest one they break.
Yeah.
Oh, very sad.
Would you kindly walk out of my set? Yeah. Just walk
My
out.
set? We don't do that. We don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, just show yourself out. I see, Andy. Would an interview by force? Even if you learned it on Duolingo, yeah. People still learn on Duolingo. Yeah. Hey, me kwanza niko very faithful na Duolingo.
You have certification? You're continuing to learn?
Yeah, but German. I'm learning German now.
So Elvina German kidogo.
You're learning what?
Yes, I'm learning German. Just self-taught.
I hope I won't have
YouTube.
Hebu ongelesha Elvina kidogo.
Na wewe wacha niongee ndio nione content.
Hata yeye asikupe pressure. Sina kuambia aliachia shule katikati.
You went to German school?
Yeah, at Gute Institute.
Oh, good.
Ah, sawa.
Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch.
Oh ja, ich kann sprechen ein bisschen. Aber nicht sehr gut.
Aber ja, nicht. Du sprichst sehr gut Deutsch.
Chocha tu.
Do you speak German?
Ah ja, sawa. Hello everyone, welcome to Sober Talks with Elvina Majiwa, a platform where I'll be talking to professionals in different fields about alcohol and tobacco and the effects it has in those particular spaces. So today I'm with Wakili. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Herman, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for the invitation as well, yes.
So tell us more about yourself, what you enjoy doing. Yeah.
Okay, so as you've heard, my name is Herman Tambo. I'm an advocate of the High Court. I love, of course, my profession. I love anything to do with law. I read a lot of things in that space. But I have a particular interest for technology, and especially the intersection between law and technology. Yes, and I'm not an expert on this topic, but I'm glad that it has given me a chance to also learn a few things when I was preparing.
Oh yes, thank you, and karibu to this platform.
Thank you as well.
You're interested in tech, yeah?
Yes, I'm interested.
Currently, are you doing anything in the tech field?
I have a podcast.
Oh, nice.
Yes, I have a podcast. It's called the iCounsel podcast. It's available on most podcast platforms, where I talk about the way the law tries to keep up with what's happening in technology, but also how technology is useful for those of us who are in the legal practice. So it's just 3 months old. It's not been there for too long, but it's exciting because we've already done 4 episodes and we have quite a few listeners as well. So it's nice and I enjoy doing it, and I don't know what it might become in future, but we'll wait and see.
I've actually listened to it myself, and it's
very
informative, very spot on. So you're doing a good job.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yes.
So sobriety, how easy is it to be sober? What does it mean to you, first of all?
To be sober. Now, I will define it in 2 ways. So first of all, there is the general understanding of what it means to be sober, which for me is just to have a clear mind, to be able to make decisions, to be able to think about things and understand what's happening around you. But if we specify the definition a little bit more with regards to drugs and alcohol, sobriety is the ability to live your life without depending on them. You do not use those substances, because a lot of times those substances affect your ability to be sober, whether in the short term or whether in the long term as well. Yeah.
In your personal life, would you say it's an easy journey, or is it a bit difficult?
Okay, I like that you've asked in my personal life, because I can only speak for myself. For me, it's not been an issue. I've never had an issue with sobriety. I do not partake in the use of drugs or alcohol in any form, and so it has not been a struggle for me. But I would understand how other people might have a struggle with it, especially because we all have different experiences. Yeah.
And in one of your podcasts, you mentioned that you worked in 3 law firms.
Yes.
How was the environment regarding alcohol and
Okay.
yeah.
So law firms can be quite stressful. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes the workload, the expectations of your bosses, and the expectation of your clients, it can really take a toll on you. And if you do not have healthy coping mechanisms, if you don't take breaks from time to time, if you don't have a strong support system, it's very easy to end up, you know, drowning yourself in drinking or in smoking just as a way to numb yourself.
So you'd say you've seen people in the lawyers who drown themselves in alcohol
Yes.
and they end up getting maybe cancer.
Yes.
You've seen those negative
Yes,
effects.
yes. I would even say that there's a lot of alcoholism in my profession because it's very, very demanding and sometimes the pressure really gets to some people. So there are quite a number of lawyers who are alcoholics. Some of them, there was even one a very high profile one who died recently, and his health challenges were connected to his drinking habits, you know, and given how successful he was, it was such a shame that his life was cut short so prematurely. So yeah, it is a big problem among people in my profession. Yeah.
Okay, I see. And are there enough laws in Kenya that protect people, especially the youth, but everyone generally, from these harms that alcohol causes?
Yes, so we have 2 acts of parliament. There is the NACADA Act, the National Agency for the Control of Alcohol and Drug Abuse. There is that act that is a bit more recent, but then there is also an older act that was passed in 1994. I forget the full name, but it's something Drugs and Narcotics Act. You know,
so for those of us who are not lawyers or advocates,
yes.
What does the act talk about?
So these statutes, so let me start with the older one. So the older one was mostly dealing with issues of drug trafficking and perhaps a little bit of regulation of, let's say, joints that serve maybe alcohol and that type of thing. But of course there was a concern, and I think most Kenyans would be familiar with Mutudo. He was the minister of, he was in charge of, you know, matters of health at some point, and he's the one who actually championed the development of the NACADA Act. So what the NACADA did, it created the NACADA itself, that agency, and now it is that agency is the one that now tries to regulate the use of even the legal substances like cigarettes by controlling access and, you know, things like that. So the NACADA Act just created NACADA. Now NACADA is an agency that has been tasked with the responsibility of now regulating issues of alcohol and drug abuse in Kenya. Yeah.
Okay. You've spoken about access. Recently in the papers I saw that there is one of these brands that's sponsoring a sporting event, a car sporting event.
Yes.
So are there laws that talk about, that regulate, or rather the unethical practices that the alcohol industry is in?
Yes, so actually the alcohol industry and even cigarettes is one of the most heavily regulated in the world for obvious reasons. In the past, alcohol was actually illegal in many countries, but now when they legalized it, they passed very, very stringent laws to try and control them. There is something called sin tax. Sin tax is basically tax that is charged on these products, and they are taxed more heavily than others so that it can discourage their use. So here in Kenya, regulation is not very tough for obvious reasons. Of course, their business interests. Some of these companies are very profitable, and as you've mentioned rightly, some of these alcohol companies, they really do a lot of marketing through sponsoring events and that type of thing. So the regulation is not very, when it comes to that area of marketing, it's not very, very good. There is a problem there because, you know, you see alcohol being advertised everywhere on billboards. That doesn't happen in some countries.
It's sad that it can even be advertised maybe a few kilometers from a school.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and
yes.
that would be detrimental.
That's a problem,
Yes.
yeah. In fact, I should have mentioned that we actually don't have enough laws to regulate issues of alcohol and drugs.
Okay, yeah.
Because I only mentioned those 2 acts. There is no other in this country that directly speaks to those issues.
Yeah. What happens when an underage person consumes alcohol?
So it is criminal. It is a criminal offense to sell alcohol to anyone under the age of 18.
Yeah.
And that's why many of these alcoholic joints, they usually put that notice. However, those laws are just there in the books. In reality, a lot of underage people get alcohol. They get access to alcohol, whether that is through middlemen who buy it for them, or sometimes even those joints, they sell it to them directly. So with the exception of supermarkets and very high-profile joints, you can literally just go to any shop and buy alcohol and no one is going to ask you how old you are. So it is a criminal offense, and I think we don't have the official statistics, but there are actually a very, very high number of underage people in this country who are consuming alcohol, and sometimes they're even buying it themselves without needing any parental.
What happens when they're arrested? Or
Actually, it's not the underage people who are supposed to be arrested. It's not criminal to consume alcohol when you are below the age of 18. It is criminal to sell alcohol. So ideally what should happen is any joint that is found selling alcohol to people under the age of 18 should be closed. That is what should happen, but that is not what happens. So a lot of times, you know how our system is broken, they'll just bribe their way around, but it's very rare, and I don't think even in my professional experience I've ever found any instance where a joint has been faulted for selling alcohol to underage. There was just that one story last year of a matatu driver who was driving some students to home when they were at closed school, and they were drunk.
I remember.
Yeah, then he took them to a police station, then there was this whole uproar. Yeah, when they're arrested, what they should do is reveal who sold the alcohol to them. But both you and I know that they will not do that.
True, that's very true. So you talked about alcohol not being a problem to you personally.
Yes, to my personal
or alcoholism rather.
Yes.
Have you ever wavered in that belief, maybe because of the influence of other lawyers, or feeling that you're missing out?
No, I have not. I have tasted alcohol, but I was a child, and it was an uncle who gave me a sip, but that's as close as I've come. For me, alcohol has always been very repulsive. I find even the idea of it is very revolting. So even if I was to find myself in a situation where I'm under a lot of stress, I don't think that some of my ways of coping would be drinking. So in my personal life, that has never been an issue.
What would be some of the ways you cope with maybe stressful environments and situations?
So for me, I think a support system, my family. I always reach out to my family members, my parents, my siblings when I have something to talk about. I also have friends that I speak to very often, and there's even an inner circle, a group of friends that I'm much more tighter with, that I can always speak to and listen to them. I'm also a Christian, so I have church friends as well that we can always share with. And hobbies, I have some things I enjoy that I do during my free time. I have ways of releasing, tension and everything. And sometimes, you just need a good night's sleep. Don't underestimate the power
of sleep and food.
And food
Definitely. So what would be your parting shot?
Yes.
Probably someone who's watching us and is struggling with alcoholism, especially those who are in the legal field. Yeah, because I've heard it's almost like a culture there. It is. Maybe after winning a case, that's how they celebrate.
They celebrate, yes.
And there are other methods of celebrating, so your parting shot.
So what I would say to, I don't know whether I should call them my learned friends. What I would say to my learned friends is that I think we know better than to look for, to destroy our own careers, because we know what alcoholism does to people. Some people are very brilliant, like the lawyer I mentioned earlier, very brilliant lawyers, but because of drinking too much. And sometimes, we are in a profession where our lives are usually at risk. So imagine putting yourself in a scenario where perhaps you are drunk, you are a bit inebriated, you really leave yourself vulnerable. There was a lawyer who was killed recently. He was murdered just 2-3 months ago under very strange circumstances. He had gone for a Friday night thing. They were drinking, and as they were coming back, his friend reports that they were not drunk, they were just a little tipsy. And that is all it took for whoever was targeting him, because someone just came and stabbed him, and this was very targeted, and he was killed. So I think we know better, and we should figure out we can celebrate in other ways. Yeah, just because you are not drinking yourself, just because you are drinking yourself silly does not mean that you're celebrating, especially when that celebration is going to come at such a huge personal cost to yourself. Yeah. But I would also say that the legal profession, sometimes a lot of my people in my profession overwork themselves. And sometimes we set unrealistic standards. We want to become rich so fast, and we put so much mental stress on ourselves that now you have to look for that outlet. So it's also important to hit the brakes sometimes. From time to time, take a break, even if you have very, very high ambition. It doesn't hurt.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Wakili.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes. And congratulations, you recently got admitted to the bar.
Yes, I was.
Congratulations.
Thank you as well.
So thank you so much, guys, for watching. This is a platform where we'll be encouraging better lifestyle choices and, of course, sobriety. Remember to subscribe and watch the next episode. So bye. See you.